In less than a decade after giving wheelchair rugby a try, he helped lead the Great Britain Paralympic team to Tokyo in beating a powerful squad of the U.S. In doing so, he also scored 24 of the 54 points in that game. Welcome, Jim Roberts. How you doing tonight?
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Hey Jim, I noticed as I was looking through your resume that and your body of work, you've done a whole lot of stuff. I mean, before you had your incident, you were a solid athlete playing in many different sports, including rugby and squash. And I mean, you seem to have a solid background in sporting. Do you think that helped you transfer over into rugby, wheelchair rugby?
Oh, absolutely. I was very lucky as a youngster. I was sort of went to a school that pushed us into as many sports as we could do, and I was yeah, like you said, I played rugby growing up, and for my university, and did cross country as well at a decent level. But yeah, I definitely think it helped. It's being around those sort of team environments really sort of knows what you can get out of other people and how you can push yourself in those environments. I think it helped me.
You know, you made a pretty meteoric rise to the top, and I'm wondering, when you found this sport, did you know instantaneously that this was the sport for you?
Um, Honestly, no. So it was kind of a weird way that I progressed in the sport. So I got injured at 19. I was at university, and my studies were my main focus. So I went back to university, and that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to get my degree, and I wanted to get a job. Unfortunately, my job that I had lined up for after university fell through. And in the meantime, I started playing wheelchair rugby and started getting a little bit better at it. And then suddenly I had this opportunity where I could actually travel and just give it a go if I wanted. And that was something I did. I moved to Phoenix with the Phoenix Heat, and the rest is sort of history a little bit.
Jim, let's fast forward to the Paralympics. Now, you made your move pretty quickly. You rose through the ranks. You played with the London Wheelchair Rugby Club, and then suddenly you've earned your way all the way to the Paralympic team in Rio. You go over there, and Great Britain comes away with a fifth. You're off the podium. That has to be a little bit disappointing, right?
Oh, absolutely. That was heartbreaking at the time. My sister was there out there watching, and I remember just being an absolutely emotional wreck after the game. We lost out to the eventual gold medal winners by 2 goals in our group stage, and we lost out on a semi final because Canada beat us in our final group game by 1 goal in overtime. So the margins that we were there or thereabouts at Rio were pretty close, but yeah, if you don't get through to that semi final, you don't get a chance. So yeah, we were I think a little bit hard done by, but obviously we were willing to make the sacrifice to come back and right those wrongs.
Hey, let's go ahead and fast forward to Tokyo. So you guys come into Tokyo and you've made solid adjustments because now you're one of the empirical teams on, in the force, and you come in and you're going to have to play the United States. And in pool play, you lose 50-48. Now that's hardly a beatdown, but nonetheless, that had to have affected maybe your confidence a little bit, knowing that perhaps you would have to meet them again.
Yeah, I mean, like we've come up against USA numerous times in the past years. We've beat them on our occasion, but never in a major tournament. So that was always something in the back of our minds, I guess, that when it came to crunch time, they'd always been the team that would beat us. Um, I know a lot of the guys really well, having played out in the States and played with um, Joe Jackson and Joe Delagrave for club teams. So I knew the guys well, and I think that loss in the group stage has probably helped us to solidify what lines would work and how we should go about sort of putting a lineup together to beat them because they're no joke. They're a really strong team and have my absolute respect.
Hey, funny you should mention Joe Delagrave. I some of that final match, and I saw right in the fourth in the fourth period. You put a lick on Joe, and virtually toppled him over. It looked like it rung his bell pretty good. Is that something you guys are kind of proud of when you give someone a good lick and they go down like that?
Yeah, when you hit them clean and hit them good like that, it's always good. Especially a guy like Joe Delagrave, like he's a big dude. He's strong. Not many people get to hit him out of his chair, and having played with him for years, uh, I can't think of another time that I've actually done it. To be honest, so yeah, it was a sweet moment, I guess.
So the gold medal game, you scored 24 goals out of 54, and you guys win 54-49. How do you guys go into this match knowing you've already lost one time to the U.S., but you've got to meet them again? And what was it? What were the adjustments that you made going into that game to give you the confidence to know that you could win?
So I guess wheelchair rugby is it's probably the most offensively driven sport in the world, and so it's about who makes the least amount of mistakes, basically, that ultimately comes out on top. And I mean, it was a close game right up until I think the last 3 or 4 minutes. Really, it was back and forth. The lead changed hands a couple times, but for us, I think it was just solidifying the lineups that we thought would work better. So whereas we've always been a team that usually would go to a more balanced lineup, we realised that actually playing against USA, we had to favour a more high-low lineup against them, and sort of just stuck with that, really.
I noticed there's a player on your team, a starter, Stuart Robinson. He's a 3.5, but yet you score more goals. Explain to us how something like that occurs. Why and how would a player of a lower classification score more goals than a guy with perhaps greater function?
Oh, so yeah, so Stuart is a 3.5, but on the GB team during the Paralympics, so we had two 3.5s, and I was the only 3.0. So because we were playing a 3-5-3-1 zero point 0.5 lineup, so it adds up to 8 points. It meant that I had to stay on the whole time, but they were able to swap Stuart and Aaron quite a bit. So it's likely if one of those had stayed on the court longer than, or at the same amount of time as me, then it's likely that they would have scored more goals than I had.
All right, so you've played on the highest level in the United States, you played on the highest level in Europe, and you've played on the highest level on the world stage at the Paralympics. I see that in the European Championships, you won both in 2017 and 2019. So tell us, if you can, some of the either subtle or obvious differences in the play between playing in Europe and playing in the United States.
Um, Honestly, not that much difference. There's a couple rule changes in the US League that make it a little bit more physical, but I think we've got a very good global game now that actually translates really well. I think the good thing that Europe have is they have a number of teams that are competing at a high level now, whereas USA only really have Canada that they can compete against at those zonal championships, and the same goes for Australia. They've only really got Japan that they can compete against, whereas now we've got Sweden, Denmark, France, Germany are an upcoming team. So we've got a lot of competition in Europe, and I think it's hopefully it's just going to get stronger and stronger.
When I met Chuck Aoki many years ago, he was just a kid. There were no Paralympics in his background, no gold medals, and suddenly he rose to stardom with the United States pretty quickly. I mean, he's obviously one of the superstars in the game, and at this point in time, I mean, maybe it might be difficult to say this for yourself, but you've risen to that level. I mean, I can see from the things that have been written and said about you that you've made your way to the very top of that game. Now suddenly, I see that you announce your retirement. Why stop now? Has it just been too much? Are there too many injuries, or is it just time to move on?
It's a number of things, but firstly, I'd just like to say, yeah, I mean, Chuck is a guy that I've looked up to pretty much my whole time playing the sport. Out of all the players in the world, I've probably studied his game style more than anyone. I think we're fairly similar in terms of what we can do on the court and our points classifications, but he's an absolute champion, and someone that gives absolutely nothing on the court. He's a real true competitor. I've loved every game that I've played against him because you know that you're always going to get absolutely everything from him. But in terms of myself, yeah, there's a number of reasons. I guess the injuries that I've sort of suffered over the years have sort of played a part. I've got some hip issues, I've got some knee issues, I've got some arthritis in my shoulder, and I've had a number of surgeries over the last couple of years just to try and sort of, I guess, patch me up to get to the Paralympics. And there's also the fact that I work full time as well as an architectural technologist. So when I'm having to work full time and then go and try and make time to training, it doesn't leave an awful lot of space for much else of life. So I think now is the time that I'd like to move on and sort of see what else life has to offer me.
Do you plan on still playing a little bit on the club level just to have fun, go out and have some camaraderie with the guys?
Probably not so much on the club level. I don't want to be the sort of has-been guy that everyone wants to take a shot at. I have said that I'll help out the current GB squad to act as a bit of a scout player for at least the two major tournaments they've got coming up this next year. But for the moment, anyway, I think it'll be a pretty clean break for me.
Jim, as I learn a little bit more about rugby as I go along, I find out the importance of the lower classification players, the point fives, the ones. When you reflect back on your probably almost decade of play, who are some of those point fives and ones that you look at who you not necessarily feared, but you respected and thought they brought a lot to the playing floor?
So it's funny you should mention the point fives and the ones. So probably a 0.5 I've owe most of my rugby career to really is Johnny Coggan, who plays for GB with me. I've lived with him for the past sort of 6-7 years. He's been an absolute stalwart of GB rugby. He's done 5 Paralympic games, and he's sort of one that's always driving standards in our squad. And then another one that I owe a lot to my development in the sport is Scott Hogshead, who's plays my coach and teammate at the Phoenix Heat. He's a 1.0, and he taught me a lot of the fundamentals really early on in my career, and I've always tried to sort of implement them in any team that I've been a part of. And he's an absolute fierce competitor in every sense of the word. I've never met anyone that hates to lose as much as Scott, and he's sort of instilled that absolute drive very early on of what we should be playing for each and every single play.
Is there something technical about their style of play that you can isolate that makes them so significant on the floor besides their
So I guess
passion?
so I guess both of them is just being absolute students of the game. They know where to be at the right time. Obviously, being a lower point of they don't have the functional ability to sort of race past someone, but just playing with Johnny and with Scott, like they put themselves in the right they sort of positions and they anticipate the play, and hardly ever make mistakes, which as I said earlier is one of the main things in wheelchair rugby. You just don't want to make mistakes, and everyone is so vitally important on the team with only 4 players on it that you have to be pulling your weight, whether that's as a 0.5 or a 3.5.
Jim, when you look back on sports and coming into being a high level disabled athlete, what do you think sports did for you in terms of bringing you back to a positive direction in life?
I think it was massive for me, not just in terms of doing something active and getting my body moving again. I think it was that camaraderie and getting back together with some guys and actually learning some really good life skills as well. You find yourself in like a situation that you've not been in before. You're disabled, that everything's new again. You got to learn how to do things, and being around guys that have done it for the past, I don't know, 10, 20 years really helps because they can just show you little tricks, little things, and it really helped me along the way, just learning from the guys, I guess.
Do you think in a way it translates over into just regular life, your studies and your work and your family?
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's something that I've always had as growing up is sport has always been key. Teaches you that respect, the teamwork, and sort of like the hard work that you can put in, and you can get the results from it, and that's something that I've always tried to carry to other aspects of my life, and hopefully it'll set me in good stead going forward.
Hey man, I noticed in pretty much every article that I was reading about you that after the Paralympics that you had so many texts and so many people coming at you that it must have been pretty exciting. But the one thing that they seemed to focus on was that you really wanted a beer after that game. Did you get that beer?
Not nearly soon enough, to be honest. It was probably a good 3 or 4 hours after the actual game finished before someone actually put a beer in my hand, which I was a little bit disappointed at. Yeah, we had to sort of do the whole medal ceremony, which was amazing, and then pack all the stuff up because the venue was being used for another sport after we left it. So, and then we had the bus ride back to the village. So yeah, it wasn't until we got back to the village that we were able to properly celebrate.
Well, you're a gold medalist, Jim Roberts. Thank you so much. You've done a lot for the sport. You're certainly a spokesman for the sport, and I hope in the future that life just keeps moving on and forward. Progress for you. So you've done a really wonderful job bringing Great Britain up to a level that they can compete with anybody in the world.
Thank you very much.